May 5th, 1945. A 400-foot cliff on the island of Okinawa, known to the men who fought there as Hacksaw Ridge. The order comes down: retreat. Pull back. The line is breaking, and the Japanese are dug into caves and tunnels the Americans can't even see. 75 wounded men are still up there, too broken to move on their own. Everyone else climbs down. One man stays. He has no rifle. He has never fired a shot in this war, and he never will. His only weapon is a pair of hands, a rope, and a promise he made to God years earlier, that he would never take a life, only save them. By the time he's done, he will have lowered every single one of those men off that cliff, alone, under fire, through the night. His name is Desmond Doss, and the Army once tried to throw him out. To understand what happened on that ridge, you have to go back 26 years to Lynchburg, Virginia. Desmond Thomas Doss was born on February 7th, 1919, into a household split down the middle. His father was a carpenter, a hard man who'd been worn down by the Depression and leaned on the bottle to cope. His mother was devout, a Seventh-day Adventist who raised her children on the 10 Commandments and made sure they knew them, especially two: thou shalt not kill, and remember the Sabbath. Those 2 commandments would define the rest of Doss's life. When Pearl Harbor was attacked and America went to war, Doss was working at a naval shipyard, a job that would have kept him out of the draft entirely. He could have stayed home. Nobody would have questioned it. He enlisted anyway. But he enlisted on his own terms. Doss told the Army he would serve, but he would not carry a weapon, and he would not work on Saturday, his Sabbath. He wanted to be a medic. He didn't call himself a conscientious objector. He preferred the term conscientious cooperator. He wasn't refusing to fight the war. He was refusing to take a life while he did it. The Army agreed to the terms. His fellow soldiers did not. Basic training was brutal for Doss, not because of the physical demands, but because of his own unit. Yeah, he refused to touch a rifle, even in training. He asked for passes to attend Saturday church services. He wouldn't work on the Sabbath unless there was a genuine emergency. To the men around him, exhausted and stretched thin, Doss looked like a coward hiding behind religion, someone getting special treatment while they did the real work. He was mocked. He was threatened. Men told him outright they'd make sure he didn't come home from combat. That friendly fire has a way of finding cowards. Officers tried to have him discharged on psychiatric grounds. At one point, the Army moved to court-martial him simply for refusing to carry a weapon, despite the fact that his terms of service had already been agreed to. Doss never fought back. He never carried the rifle, not even to make his life easier. He endured it, quietly, the same way he intended to endure the war, through conviction, not confrontation. Eventually, the Army relented and let him serve as a battalion aide man, unarmed, exactly as he'd asked. His unit shipped out to the Pacific in 1944, still doubting him. They wouldn't doubt him for long. The men who had mocked Doss got their answer in the summer of 1944 on the island of Guam. Under fire, Doss did exactly what he said he would do. He moved through the chaos of combat unarmed, treating wounded men where they fell, dragging them to cover, working while bullets were still flying. His actions there earned him his first Bronze Star. Then came Leyte, in the Philippines, months later. Same story, same courage, a second Bronze Star. Something changed in how his unit saw him. The same soldiers who had once shunned him, who had told him he didn't belong, began to understand exactly what kind of man was walking beside them. One of his fellow soldiers, Captain Jack Glover, had personally tried to get Doss transferred out of the unit before they ever saw combat. By the time the war was over, Glover would call him one of the bravest men he'd ever known. But nothing Doss had done yet compared to what was waiting for him on Okinawa. April 1945, Okinawa, the last great island battle of the Pacific War, and the bloodiest. Over 80 days of fighting lay ahead, a campaign that would ultimately cost well over 100,000 lives, American, Japanese, and Okinawan civilians caught between them. It was, by nearly every historian's account, the most brutal campaign of the entire Pacific theater. At the center of it stood the Maida Escarpment, a 400-foot cliff the Americans nicknamed Hacksaw Ridge. The only way up was by climbing rope cargo nets. The top 35 feet overhung the cliff face entirely. And waiting on the plateau above were Japanese defenders dug into a maze of caves and tunnels they'd spent years fortifying. On May 2nd, Doss climbed those nets with the rest of his company. For days, the fighting was relentless. Machine gun fire was so concentrated that men were being cut down where they stood. Doss worked through it, unarmed, treating the wounded in the open, exposed to the same fire, tearing through the infantry around him. Then came May 5th. As the fighting intensified, the order was given to retreat off the ridge. Roughly 75 men were too badly wounded to climb down on their own. Doss refused to leave them. Alone on that plateau, under fire, through the night, he worked his way from man to man. He'd find a wounded soldier, drag him to the cliff's edge, and lower him down the rock face using a rope tied in a special knot he'd learned. One that let him control the descent safely, even alone, even in the dark. Then he'd go back for the next one. And the next. He kept repeating a quiet prayer to himself the entire time. Just let me get one more. One more man. Over and over. Through the night, he kept going back. By morning, he had lowered every one of them to safety. Later, estimates ranged as high as 100 men. The number formally credited to him was 75, and he still wasn't finished. Over the following weeks, Doss continued treating the wounded under fire, again and again, refusing to stop even when ordered to rest. On May 21st, his luck ran out. A grenade landed near him, and shrapnel tore into both his legs. He treated his own wounds rather than pull another medic away from the fighting, and waited 5 hours before allowing anyone to carry him out. As litter bearers finally carried him toward the aid station, they came under fire again. Doss saw a more critically wounded man nearby, and insisted the bearers set him down and take the other soldier first. While waiting on the ground, Doss was hit again. A sniper's bullet shattered his arm. He splinted it himself using a rifle stock, then crawled the rest of the way to safety. In the confusion of the battlefield, reports went out that Doss had been killed. The news reached his hometown of Lynchburg before he had the chance to correct it. He had to write his own mother a letter to prove he was still alive. Doss was evacuated from Okinawa on May 21st aboard the hospital ship USS Mercy. He would carry 17 pieces of shrapnel in his body for the rest of his life. Some of it from a grenade he tried to kick away from himself and the men beside him. On October 12, 1945, President Harry Truman placed the Medal of Honor around Desmond Doss's neck at a White House ceremony. He became the first conscientious objector in American history to receive it, earned entirely without ever firing a single shot. The war had cost him more than blood. Years of exposure in muddy foxholes across the Pacific left him with tuberculosis. He spent nearly 6 years moving in and out of hospitals. Eventually, doctors had to remove his left lung along with 5 ribs. He would live out the rest of his life on a single lung. He never went back to carpentry. His damaged arm wouldn't allow it. But he never expressed regret either. Doss simply said that being a medic was, in his words, the most rewarding work there was. In 1962, at the 100th anniversary of the Medal of Honor, fellow recipients chose Desmond Doss to represent them at a White House ceremony, where he sat and talked with President John F. Kennedy, the once mocked conscientious objector, now standing among his nation's most honored soldiers. Desmond Doss died on March 23, 2006, at the age of 87, after a lifetime shaped by the promise he made as a young man that he would serve his country without ever taking a life. He never wanted the spotlight. For years, he resisted attempts to turn his story into a film, worried that Hollywood would exaggerate what had happened or steal the credit that he believed belonged to his faith rather than to himself. When Hacksaw Ridge finally reached theaters in 2016, 10 years after his death, it introduced his story to a generation that had never heard his name. But long before the film, before the medal, before any of the recognition, Desmond Doss was simply a young man from Lynchburg, Virginia, who decided that courage and nonviolence were not opposites, that you could walk into the worst fighting of the Pacific War and still refuse to become what the war demanded of everyone else. He went in unarmed. He came out having saved more lives than almost any other man on that ridge. 75 men went home to their families because Desmond Doss refused to leave the top of that cliff. That's the story of Hacksaw Ridge. That's Desmond Doss. If stories like this one deserve to be remembered, hit subscribe. There's another Battlefield Chronicle waiting for you next time.